Hi, my name's Lily and welcome to Small Talk. So I'm a British national, but I'm based in Spain and I've been living under the coronavirus lockdown, one of the strictest in the world since the 15th of March, I think. Anyway, for the entire part of that lockdown, I wasn't allowed to do anything apart from visit my local supermarket, which is about 100 meters away. I have loads of videos talking about my personal experience and doing lots of coronavirus updates. So I will link some up here. Now, we have good news. We've been allowed to walk for the last 2-3 weeks, but only between the hours, well, my hours that I'm allowed is between 6 a.m. in the morning and 10 a.m. and then in the evening between 8 and 11. And there are a lot of rules around that, and I will link a video talking to you about that as well, so we don't put it all in here. We have been given some fantastic news in Barcelona, where I live. We have been held back from the sort of easing of lockdown. So basically in Spain, it was announced early in May, so early this month, that there were certain phases, 3 phases towards the new normal for easing lockdown. And I've stayed in phase 0. Give me more. Actually 0.5 they moved us into in the last week. We're allowed to do a few more things. But this coming Monday, I will be moving into phase 1. So I'm extremely excited. This basically means that bars and cafe terraces, so any seating outdoors, will be opened. They can be at 50% capacity. All non-essential shops are opening, so that'll be at 50% capacity. So anyone who still has money after coronavirus is able to go shopping. We're allowed to meet outside or inside in groups of 10. We have to observe social distancing, and it's compulsory to wear a mask not compulsory, it's compulsory to wear a mask when social distancing cannot be observed, and you will be fined if you don't have a mask. So these are the sort of things. Now, one thing that I want to emphasize, I have a video talking about all the different phases, what you're allowed in different phases, so you can check that out so that I don't make it too much here. And I will link everything down below in the description box. So please check it out. There's loads of things there. So I want to emphasize that we will be given these freedoms, we're allowed to do these things, but critically, one thing we're not allowed to do is we're not allowed to move from sort of where we live. So Spain is organized into provinces, well, regions, and then within the regions you've got provinces. So I live in Barcelona province, which is actually pretty big. So you can think, you know, in terms of UK counties, more or less. So you're not allowed to move around your county even. That's not until phase 2. So in phase 2, which each phase lasts about 2 weeks, that's when you can move around your province, county. And then after that, you can move between provinces. So this is really important. It's like we're opening up and we're allowed to do things, but you're not allowed to move the population around the country. That seems to be where the scientific advice is strongest. You know, that if there's an outbreak, it needs to stay an outbreak in a specific geographical location, not suddenly be spread invisibly across the country and we get back to where we were in March. So I have to stay in Barcelona, so that's fine, it's a big city. But that means that, you know, say you live in Basildon, you have to stay in Basildon, or the Basildon of Spain, if you know what I mean. Anyway, it was important to say that, so I'll come back to it later. But this video is all about Mr. Dominic Cummings. And what has he done? What has he done? It's all over Twitter. It's been all over the press briefing. I just watched about an hour of that, you know, so that was fun. Transport Secretary, he did quite well. Kudos to him. So, Cummings. Who is he? Now, he's made a career of kind of being a bit of a bad boy, a little bit unconventional. He is a special advisor to the government, to Boris Johnson. He's actually his chief advisor. Now, he rose to fame, or infamy, let's say, because he was the mastermind behind the Vote Leave campaign, and obviously Britain's successful vote to exit the EU. Now, he is his closest political advisor. He is, they call them special advisors, or SPADs, if you ever see that around, that's what that is. Now, these are unelected officials. It's a little bit shady sometimes because they have huge power within government, but they're actually not under scrutiny. They're not part of the sort of apolitical civil service class. They're a politicized civil servant, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a little bit of a black hole. These people, we don't know what goes on. Anyway, it's turned out that in March, when we were all told, well, when you were all told, and I was actually locked inside, but when you were all told, stay home, save lives, you know, if one of you gets, if you get infected, you have to self-isolate for 7 days and the rest of the family as well. Turns out that maybe didn't apply to SPAD, Dominic Cummings, who actually, we've now found out in March, took a 260-mile drive with his coronavirus positive testing wife all the way to Durham to stay in a separate house, they say, near his parents who are like in their 70s. And they say that this was essential travel of 260 miles, essential travel because they have a 4-year-old, and they keep on talking about this 4-year-old, and they need to do childcare. Now, I feel like this is a smack in the face for maybe other parents where one of them got coronavirus or both of them got coronavirus and they had to muddle through and look after their kids as well, or, you know, whatever else. The other thing is that it doesn't seem to be a childcare thing because apparently they were just dropped food at the door by relatives, but that's that. Anyway, speaking to reporters today, he said he did the right thing in making the trip. He didn't break any laws and he doesn't care. He says this: who cares about good looks? It's a question of doing the right thing. It's not about what you guys think, you know, the MSN media. I'm not part of that, so. But yeah, the MSN, you know, bad guys, you know. He is the bad boy of Brexit, and he's going off this thing, you know, very much like what Trump does, which is, you know, the things that are supposed to ruin someone, you just double down and go, do you know what? It's your political correctness. It's your polite society. But actually, I think this one for once is big and not going to go away, because that works when you've got everybody on your side. When it was polarized culture wars of Brexit and Remain and Leave and never going to agree, fine. But in coronavirus, where across the country people have made sacrifices, people have had to make devastating decisions. People haven't been able to attend funerals of their loved ones. This isn't like, oh yeah, shrug it off, I'm a bad boy. This is like, have some humility. And also, what sort of message does this send? That it's what? The people who make the rules are exempt from them, but the rest of us have to follow them. The other thing is that 2 other advisors to the government have had to resign for similar things. Professor Ferguson of Sage, he was having that affair and then he got resigned. And I think Matt Hancock was just like, it's just horrifying. Matt Hancock, the health secretary, like, I'm horrified. I hope he really thinks about what he did, you know. And they threw them under the bus. Good. They had, you know, failed their duty. They'd failed to do what was the right thing. And they were fired. It was also Dr. Calderwood, who was a Scottish chief medical officer. She had to resign. So what about these 2 had to resign, but Dominic Cummings is protected? And actually, it just looks bad, because in this period, London had a terrible outbreak, but the northeast and Yorkshire, where Durham is, was not actually bad in County Durham. You know, it was relatively low, but apparently it has the highest rate of infections in England now. So yeah, people are going to be pissed. They say that it's now that the government seems to be like, well, he interpreted it in this way. It's like, do you not see how this undermines all of your messaging? Do you not see how you're still asking people to stay alert and do all the rest? And you've just said that it's fine for your political advisor, when everyone was making the ultimate sacrifice, to just gallivant across the country, because actually, do you know what it would have been? It would have been easier to have the help from the family. It isn't a, what do they call it? A safeguarding issue. It isn't a safeguarding issue of the child. It's a convenience issue. And do you know what people have had to do in coronavirus? They have had to say goodbye to luxuries and convenience, and they've had to deal with it. And like I said, make some really, really hard decisions. So the optics of it is just terrible. Now, Labour has come out and said, you know, it was really, really clear, the messaging. And also, they're now turning the screw and they're saying, we want to know what the Prime Minister knew. We want to know who in government signed this off. Because whilst we're telling the rest of the country to do this, we're like, oh yeah, do you know what? It's all right for you, mate, you know. Go on, bad boy. So, I mean, a lot of the cabinet ministers have been releasing statements today, you know, these saying, so, you know, 2 parents with coronavirus, this is Dominic Raab, 2 parents with coronavirus were anxiously taking care of their young child. Those now seeking to politicise it should take a long, hard look in the mirror. Do you know what? Actually, 9 times out of 10 this works. But I've had a little look on right-wing Twitter today. I've had a little look at some of the people who usually support the government most. Brexiters who have, you know, got what they wanted. Now, Tim Montgomery is one. He says that if Number 10 wanted to keep Dominic Cummings, they should have apologised for breaking the rules, but say it wasn't a resigning issue. The pretense that no breach took place undermines all lockdown messages and insults public intelligence. And to say, take a long, hard look in the mirror, I hate this sort of gaslighting language. Yeah, we're outraged. That's what the mirror's telling me. Now, Julia Hartley-Brewer, another person who, is usually on the side of government, said, when I had coronavirus in mid-March, do you know what I didn't do? Visit my parents. You know why? Because I didn't want to infect my mid-70s parents. And that was before the lockdown forbade me to do it. What Cummings did was morally and legally wrong. End of. So this is not going away. Someone else said, so 2 adults were too ill to look after a 4-year-old, but decided they were fine to drive almost 300 miles. And a member of SAGE has come out and said trusting government is key to maintaining adherence to government advice, and perceived fairness is key to trust. This is the thing, perceived fairness is massive. So it's sort of seen as, the ministers are rallying behind him, but actually Tory MPs haven't said that much. The other thing is that the police have come out and said that they thought it was unwise to do this at that time, and Dorset police have said it will inevitably give them sort of throwback in officers' faces. This weekend, officers are going to be going around patrolling, asking people to social distance, and people are going to be like, oh no, but it's all right to drive 260 miles. And do you know what? It's incredibly difficult to tell someone, oh yeah, no, sorry, that's true. Like, this makes police officers' jobs more difficult, makes everybody's jobs more difficult. People will say, if it was okay for him to do it, why is it not okay for me? And this is one final thing that I want to say on that. Someone said, and it's really important, that why is Dominic Cummings being protected so much? This undermines, in the press conference today, they were talking about how justifying it, that you can now do an interpretation apparently, and the journalist said, but we were told to follow it to the letter, and now you're saying, well, actually you could have, because one person did. One person. So how valuable is this person to the functioning of government? I mean, I know that we have a pretty yes man cabinet that was recruited on the fact that they were yes people to the Brexit clause. You remember that massive culling in late 2019 of grandees of the Tory party. So maybe we have sort of, it just seems crazy. And, it says, the whole weight of government, the messaging, the whole coronavirus plan is being sacrificed to make sure that this guy stays in his job. And it is true, mark my words, that if it was anybody else, they'd be gone. They'd be resigned. Like, you can't defend this. So by trying to defend it, you're undermining the rest of the project. And the fact that the Prime Minister is willing to put so much and lose so much political capital on this, and lose so much common sense capital, since we know that we love that common sense, it suggests that he can't cope without Cummings. We all joke about how Cummings is the mastermind and the real Prime Minister in there, but I mean, this is worrying. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say on it for today. If you like this video, please give me a like. It really helps. Please subscribe. I'd love to have more subscribers. I do loads of videos on politics. At the moment, coronavirus themed, but, things will start moving. Politics will start happening again. Thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of your weekend, and stay safe wherever you are.